Okay, so the Eagles just got rid of Haason Reddick, and the trade compensation is a little questionable. Let's get into was this a good move and what was Howie Roseman thinking? Plus, at least Philly's taking a look at an exciting pass rushing prospect, while announcing significant changes to the offseason schedule, so how does that impact Kellen Moore's offense and expectations for Jalen? And also, with the NFL rule change toward kickoffs, it's clear that there's only one option for the Birds moving forward, and he's ready for it. So let's talk about it. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? Let's start out with a big happy birthday to Josh Sweat, as Sweaty J turned 27 and is ready to take his game up another level this year. Obviously, he and several others didn't live up to the standard last season, but with him agreeing to a restructured contract and playing on the final year of his contract, I'd say he's a little bit motivated. And after the recent bombshell, he'd better be. After the Eagles sent Haason Reddick to the New York Jets for a 2026 conditional third-round pick. Yes, I didn't misspeak, 2026. I mean, at least the silver lining is that if Haas plays 67.5% of plays and gets 10-plus sacks, then the pick becomes a second-round pick in 2026. Don't worry, I'm with you. I'm trying to figure out how this trade works out for the Eagles. The only thing I can come up with is that this is the best deal that Howie could get for Reddick. And while this is total speculation, maybe Reddick wasn't budging and even willing to hold out. Because why else would you get rid of your best defensive player? A guy who's had 10-plus sacks for 4 consecutive seasons. Like only one other dude in the NFL's done that in Myles Garrett. Which is why I totally understand Gail's thoughts saying the Eagles lost a major tone setter in Haason Reddick. Players like that don't come around too often. Reddick was reliable as they come and gonna miss Reddick igniting the stadium like he did, but hoping Howie got another move coming for the defense. I get it, and sure, the hope is that Justin Simmons signing becomes a little bit more likely now, although I'm leaning towards it being more of a benefit for DeVonta Smith more than anything, which I'll get to in a sec. But this really comes down to Bryce Huff needing to be the guy you signed him to be, along with Nolan Smith, who had offseason surgery, and the Birds continue to sing his praises, as I do. Come on, let's give him a little more time before we call Nolan a bust. At the same time, I agree, you can't ever have too many pass rushers.
Is there a limit?
No, we all know there's not, but now you just have to add through the draft and just bank on your players performing. Because I'd say it's pretty likely that the money saved here is going to DeVonta Smith. Since Smitty's obviously eligible for an extension, but understandably, Howie probably wanted to make sure he had one contract situation officially done before moving on to the next one. Like Thomas asked, would you rather give 30-year-old Reddick a 3-year extension or Smitty a 4-year extension? It's not even a question. You know it and I know it. I mean, the league is skewed towards offense. So with the Slim Reaper being 25 and only getting better, as much as I still hate to see Reddick leave, this move makes a lot more sense when looking at the alternatives. Granted, there's definitely going to be changes on the offensive side of the ball too, as Kellen Moore was seen hanging out with Nick Foles at the NCAA tournament. Who knows, maybe asking him if he'd consider coaching in Philly. Yet one unexpected move for the Eagles is happening. After the NFL released the Birds' off-season workout program, which includes a mandatory minicamp for the first time since 2019 under Doug Peterson.
We're talking about practice, man. I mean, how silly is that?
Look, it's important to get the extra work. I mean, not surprisingly, they're making this shift since you've got 2 new external coordinators in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. So ultimately, this just gives the players more time to get acclimated and adjusted. Personally, I'm expecting big things from Jalen Hurts, and then he'll take another big step seeing how Moore's offenses typically ask a lot of the quarterback. However, after the new OC asking Howie to go out and get Saquon Barkley, Greg Cosell is questioning how much that signifies what Moore thinks about Jalen's game.
But it leads me to believe is there going to be a little bit of a change in their offensive approach with the new coordinator and Kellen Moore. In other words, is the offense not necessarily going to run through Jalen Hurts? You know, when you do a deep dive on Jalen Hurts tape from a year ago, which I've done, then you see that there were some concerns that did crop up. And again, it's not to say he's not a good NFL quarterback, but, you know, it's a coach's job to study everything in great detail and really see what a player is and what he isn't, what he does well, what he doesn't do well. And I think when you do that with Hurts, there are some things that showed up that maybe with the new coordinator, because you know when a new coach comes in, they look at every single play. That's what they do, and they look at them more than once. And they may have decided that, you know what, we need the run game. And by the way, Hurts is a factor in the run game. That's a critical point here to be made. Hurts is a factor in the run game. They may feel that the run game needs to be a bigger piece of their offense and that they want to back that theoretically and maybe even practically during the season can carry the ball 18, 20 times every week and can be much more a foundational piece of what they're going to do on offense.
I don't know if it's as much as not trusting Jalen's approach, but I do respect Cosell's knowledge of the game. And heck, we all know how much more the Eagles needed to commit to the run game last season. Like, I'm perfectly fine leaning on Saquon, especially with how much you're paying him and your O-line. But what's the healthy balance? For real, if you had to say what percentage of run versus pass you wanted to see next season, what are you going with? Also, speaking of the offense, how are you feeling about Cam Jurgens at center? Because remember, Nick Sirianni remained non-committal about Beef Jerky being the guy, even though the Birds drafted him to be Kelsey's replacement, and has even been complimentary of Landon Dickerson briefly playing the position, or a guy like Matt Hennessy since he has 19 starts at center. However, judging by the top 30 visits and pro day scouting done so far, the writing's on the wall that Jurgens is going to move inside. After all, with 7 of the top 14 visits being offensive linemen, and the bulk of those having a focus towards right guard ability, I think it's safe to say they're moving that way, which is really going to be perfect. There's a reason Howie Roseman took him so early, knowing they still had Kelsey, while also saying he's different than other guys who have come out and thinking that he will be really, really good. Look, I know he's only played 43 snaps at center, but I can honestly say that I'm not concerned about Jurgens. Is that crazy? I don't know. What do you think? I'd say it's definitely not as crazy as the NFL's new kickoff rule, or at least the onside kick part requiring teams to telegraph anytime they want to do it. Although, like I talked about in a previous video, I'm very much in favor of the new kickoff because it's going to create a ton more return opportunities. And like Emmanuel Acho shared, this year is going to be more important than ever for special teams.
The biggest thing, there's going to be a lot less space between the kicking team, which means the return team is likely going to have much bigger returns. What in the world do I mean? Old kickoff rules. Ball would kick off at maybe the 35-yard line. Because of that, you're running roughly 40 yards, a 40-yard sprint the kicking team is before contact. Well, in 40 yards, there can be a lot more separation between the kicking team's players because usually you have a speed safety or speed cornerback standing next to a defensive end or a tight end, standing next to a linebacker. Well, that 4-3 is standing next to that 4-7 40 time, that's standing next to that 4-6 40 time. Because of the stagger from the kicking team, if the receiving team breaks past one level, well, there's a next level defender. Think defense. You have the defensive line, then the linebackers, then the secondary. But in defense, if everybody's all on the same level, the second you crease one level, you crease all the levels. So with the new kickoff rules, with everybody being roughly 20 yards from contact, with everybody being at the opposing 40, and the contact starting at the opposing 25 or 20, then the 4-4 player running next to the 4-7 player, you're not going to see a discrepancy because there's not enough time for there to be separation. Thus, the receiving team is going to hit everybody at the same time. If they hit all of the defenders or all of the kicking team at the same time, you can crease them. And once they're creased, that joint can go to the house. So what looks like a small rule actually will be a very, very big rule. Imagine in defensive football if you had everybody lined up at the defensive line. You see that on occasion, on 3rd and 1, on 4th and 1, when that random QB sneak or that random running back dive breaks out the house. And as a defense or as the fan of the defending team, you're like, how the hell did that happen? Well, it happened because you had everybody on the same level. You never want everybody on the same level in football. But these new rules will likely promote everybody on the same level because there's not enough space to create space.
Obviously, you could drop some guys back to create some levels, but it's still a great point that it's going to change a lot of things on that side. I mean, it already has if you look at the fact that literally less than a couple hours after this new rule change, the Pittsburgh Steelers signed Cordarrelle Patterson, the guy with the most kick returns in NFL history, to a contract, or the unconventional route that Kansas City took to add rugby star Louis Rees-Zammit on a 3-year contract. Because sure, there's a lot of similarities with this lineup now to rugby. Before you say it, no, we don't need to put Jordan Mailata back there just because he has experience. Although there's a couple options on the roster who are already significant upgrades from Boston Scott in that area. First off, there's newly signed wide receiver 3 favorite Paris Campbell, who's returned a total of 15 kicks in his career, 8 of those being last season for 23.9 average and a 36-yard long. Yeah, nothing crazy, but again, it's better than Boston. And with 4.3 speed, the potential is certainly there, which the same could be said for Tyler Hall due to his 31.3 yards per return average in college. However, he hasn't returned in the pros, so not sure he's going to get the initial nod. Of course, when Ed Cracks threw out the question of what will the Eagles do about bringing in a kick returner, Isaiah Rodgers was quick to chime in and say it's him, which kind of seems like a no-brainer, because Rodgers has 61 kick returns in his career, including a 101-yard touchdown and 6 other 40-yard-plus returns. So it's no surprise the general consensus is this dude's a game-changer with the ball in his hands. Oh yeah, and in case you didn't know, Rodgers is on record for running a 4.28, so like you see in all the footage, good luck catching him him once he turns on the Jets. To me, it's obvious. Rodgers wants to be your kick returner, and there's no one more qualified, so this is definitely the direction the Eagles should go in. I mean, honestly, is there anyone else you'd prefer over him? Hopefully, special teams coach Michael Clay doesn't overthink this one and will utilize the 26-year-old's ability. To his credit, Clay has shown the ability to adjust and led the best special teams unit in the league last season, so I'm trusting him here. And I'm also trusting Vic Fangio as well, but hopefully we see the same usage for the cornerback spot. Now sure, I've got really high hopes for Kelee Ringo and definitely think he's going to take another step this year, but even if you wanted to move the 5'10", 170-pound corner inside to the slot, I think he could prove really beneficial in that area. Yes, I realize he's only played a very small handful of snaps in the slot in the NFL, but given his speed, quickness, and overall skill set, I think it's worth a look, especially with his next-level competitiveness, intensity, and consistent efforts to break up passes and create lots of turnovers. Again, there's a reason Howie Roseman went out and made this move to add to the roster, so assuming the rust is gone by Friday night in Brazil, I see no reason why Rodgers shouldn't be starting. I guess that's also assuming that he gets reinstated, since Roger Goodell has yet to issue the all-clear. However, Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie said that he's very optimistic the NFL will clear the former Colts corner for violating the league's gambling policy, saying the former 6th-round pick out of UMass is a very big part of the team's plans going forward. And considering Rodgers was ranked 6th highest out of all corners in terms of coverage grade and 20th best in run defense, I'll say it again. Get this dude on the field. By the way, he feels the same way, posting to Twitter saying he's ready, while continuing to post workout videos and highlights on social media. So I think there's definitely some hidden gems and added depth at corner. But that doesn't change my wanting to draft a corner in the first round, which is what NFL draft analyst Chad Reuter thinks the Eagles will consider, since Howie has traded up in the first round in 4 of the last 5 years. So another Thursday night swap with either Minnesota or Denver could secure the services of a top corner like Terrion Arnold or Quinyon Mitchell. He also mentioned Xavier Worthy, but I can't imagine taking your wide receiver 3 that early. Anyway, Reuters says Mitchell might be the top candidate given his combination of size at 6'1", 195 pounds, and 4.33 speed. Y'all already know I would love that scenario. First off, with Darius Slay getting older and James Bradbury surely having his days numbered. However, as we all know, never forget about the trenches, because that's Howie's bread and butter, as the Birds brought in Penn State defensive end Chop Robinson, according to Andrew DeCecco. And Chop would definitely be interesting, because he's the 3rd most athletic edge in the class with insane measurables from the combine. Like at 6'3", 254 pounds, he ran a 4.48. Plus, what's not to like about the 21-year-old's 21% pass rush win rate? Okay, yeah, unfortunately, it only led to 3 sacks last season, with scouts citing his lack of polish being the main reason why. Yet, based on what I've seen in other scouting reports online, the areas he's lacking are coachable. So sure, there's naturally some concern, but if anyone can unlock his potential, it wouldn't be surprising to see Chop excel at getting to the quarterback. With that being said, I think 22 is way too early for me, but maybe you trade back or even trade up in the 2nd round and it'd make a little bit more sense. My ideal scenario is to still get Edgerrin Cooper, trade up early in the 2nd round, and then obviously, yes, with the 1st round, going with a cornerback. But still, let's say you're going after Chop Robinson, how comfortable would you be, or I guess what position would it have to be for you to be comfortable with the Eagles drafting him? All right, do me a favor, hit that like button, make sure to subscribe if you haven't, because there's a lot more coming you don't want to miss, and y'all have a happy Easter. This has been the Philly Special.